Is A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I ask, what have you learned? Welcome in. We are live here on this Friday before week one of the NFL season. It is back. We had football last night. It was great to see. NFL football, of course, we're talking about. We've had college for 2 weeks now. But nonetheless, we have a lot to do today, and it will mostly center around the Atlanta Falcons. Plus, I'll give you some plays for the weekend in the NFL that I really like before the end of the show. So we've got a lot to do here today. Appreciate you guys joining me on this Football Friday. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter at LockedOnATL. Of course, I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno, and check out the entire row of shows that we have here on the Locked On Sports Atlanta Network. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Okay. I was doing some research here on the Atlanta Falcons, and in particular, Arthur Smith, as we head into week one. We've talked so much about the lead up, about how Arthur Smith has tried to do things differently and try to prepare this team differently for this week one opener against the New Orleans Saints. And I think that's good. I think it's smart. But really, for me, when you start to read into some of the numbers here, this is about what has Arthur Smith learned from last year to this year, and how much of an adjustment coach is he? Because guess what? The best adjustment coaches in this league are the ones who last the longest. The ones who are able to adapt, the ones who are able to change on the fly, the ones who are able to figure out problems mid-game and make sure that they are solved before the game gets out of hand. And this is a question, I think, for Arthur Smith in figuring out how much he has changed from last year to this year. You know, one of the things that Arthur Smith used a ton of in Tennessee that he was incredibly successful with was play action. And if anybody is a fan, by the way, of Warren Sharp, the Sharp Football Analysis, the guy's really good. And I buy his preview, and there's a lot of incredible notes in there and stats and everything that you're just not going to find written up pretty much on any website. If you're into, I don't want to say X's and O's, but if you're into analytics per se of X's and O's, then it's always a great read. And his breakdown of the Falcons was spot on. The numbers are quite illuminating, if you will. And I say all that to say, because Arthur Smith last year used play action a ton, right? And you could say, well, he used it in Tennessee because he had Derrick Henry and it worked. That may be true, but still, he used it last year without a running game. The problem was last year, when he used it in the first couple of weeks, they were only averaging a depth of target, meaning how far they threw the ball down the field, of 2.8 yards. So there are a lot of checkdowns in the play action. Well, that defeats the point of play action, because the point of play action is to draw linebackers in. If you're still throwing the ball below where the linebackers are, you're actually just putting the linebackers closer to the football. So that was a recipe for failure. They changed. The target of depth went from just 2.8 yards to 9.6 yards, and they had a much higher success rate. That was something that he adapted to. That's a win for the Falcons, right? Those are the kind of adaptations we need to see him make. Now, there's more of what Arthur Smith is used to from a consistency standpoint, or at least a philosophical standpoint. His two tight end sets were a major part of what he does offensively. And you saw that going back to Tennessee. The personnel groupings that he used, and I'm curious to see how much he is going to use those two tight end sets again. They were very effective in Tennessee. Again, this is Derrick Henry aside. I'm going to prove to you why it's Derrick Henry aside in a moment. But this is the formation he likes to work out of, two tight end sets. So you got Parker Hesse, you have John Fitzpatrick, who's on IR right now. But how much are they going to use the two tight end set traditionally? How much will Kyle Pitts line up inside as a tight end? How much will he line up split? I think that is part of the reason why they drafted the way they did. And maybe it makes more sense because they want to leave Kyle Pitts inside on the line of scrimmage. So you draft another guy on the outside that makes it more amenable for Kyle Pitts to get open. These are things that I'm looking for in week one, right? I want to see where Pitts lines up. I want to see how many 2 tight end sets they get. I want to see how much play action they use. These are the things that last year they had to sort of figure out a little bit on the fly and make some changes and adaptations to. Will they stick with him? Do they consider it successful? And how much changing will they do? I'll give you proof why Derrick Henry not being on the Falcons doesn't matter. And I'll do that in just a second. First, a word from my friends over at Built Bar. Folks, these Built Bars are amazing. They're off the charts. And their newest flavor, the cookie dough chunk and the puffs, it is so good. Chewy, real cookie dough. And, of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. You get all the joys of cookie dough without the hassle of all the bad stuff that comes with it. By the way, these bars are a great snack when you're feeding something sweet, but you don't want all the guilt. They're only 160 calories. They have 15 grams of protein in them, the good collagen protein that's more digestible. Your body absorbs it more efficiently and provides you tons of health benefits. So you can eat something that tastes good and is also good for you. So run to Built.com, snag a box for the entire family. It's the perfect treat, but you're probably going to want to hide them and keep them for yourself only. Again, go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKEDON15 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Again, that's Built.com and the promo code LOCKEDON15. All right, back to the Falcons here and why them not having Derrick Henry doesn't matter. And you know this doesn't matter why? Because the Falcons last year committed to the run on first down more than any team in the NFL. And they were bad at it. They were really bad at it. They had the worst first down run rate success of any team in the league last year. Now, there was a little bit of a pivot because when you look at what they did in the first 7 weeks, okay, or the first 6 weeks, I should say, because I think they had a bye in week 5, week 6 last year, whatever it was. Yeah, they were terrible on first down. And then the week after the bye, they went to passing more on first down. They beat the Dolphins last year in that game. And then Arthur Smith went back into running on first down at a 58% clip. And I think it's interesting to note that Arthur Smith last year, with the benefit of having Matt Ryan, still didn't pass enough on first down as much as he should have. And now when you have a lesser quarterback with Marcus Mariota, how much will they stick with the run early on, despite the fact that they didn't have any success? I think that is something that's critical to note. If you're constantly putting yourself in 2nd and 9 and 2nd and 8, and then you pass on 2nd down, well, if you don't get a completion, now you're in a very untenable 3rd and 8, 3rd and long situation, which are very tough to make. Putting your team behind the 8 ball and behind the line of scrimmage, both figuratively and literally, is a recipe for disaster, especially for an offense that's not very accomplished. And I think that when you look at this, these are the sort of things I want to see if Arthur Smith has truly pivoted on. Is he going to change? Is he going to do things differently this year than he did last year? Because guess what? You know, the schedule didn't get easier this year. It got harder. You're playing, especially at the beginning, you're playing a whole level of different toughness of opponents that you didn't see last year. So there is a certain amount of how much do I want to stick to my principles or how much do I want to adapt to what's in front of me? Another note about the running game last year. They were much more effective last year running to the right. Surprisingly, they were more effective running to the right and less effective running to the left. Yet, they ran a lot more to the left than they did to the right. Why? I don't know. I can't answer that question. I'll give you one final stat here that I think is going to be important. And not only the stat itself, but in the macro picture. Last year, on the first drive of the game, okay, the Falcons were 7th in the NFL in scoring percentage. Top 10 for that offense last year. 7th in the NFL in scoring percentage. However, they were 31st in the league in touchdown percentage on their first drive, meaning they settled for a hell of a lot more field goals than they did touchdowns. We know the red zone issues on this team. We know the problems with the red zone on this team. Forget the red zone in particular. Folks, this team cannot settle for field goals. Young Waku cannot be the most important player on your offense. And I don't want to hear that crap because you know how much I hate kickers. But the point is simply that this team settling for field goals will cost them games. They've got to find a way to get in the end zone. And it's on Arthur Smith to find a way for them to get in the end zone. All right, coming up next, the 5 most important Falcons this year are, I'll tell you who that is, right after this on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, search Locked On Sports Atlanta.